Hi, and welcome back to our crash course on After Effects. Maybe you recognize my shirt, and also my dog. We featured both of them in different videos. But the shirt's from our Halloween video, and I inherited after the shoot. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on our blog's holiday video archive. It's pretty good.
Alright.
Okay, back to After Effects. In the last episode, we went over a lot of the basic elements and learned keyframing. In this episode, we'll take it a step further and learn tracking. Tracking is a really useful tool for so many things, but three common uses are tracking objects in space, steadying shaky footage, and replacing screens on a device. We made another example project for you, so head to the blog and download that first. Let's open that up and I'll show you around. In it are a few folders, a few compositions, and some stock footage. We have the first composition open called 1.1 Cafe, and you can see we have all our elements in place ready for tracking. What we're going to do is track these totally random made-up names that don't sound at all familiar onto this totally original stock footage that doesn't look one bit generic. The plan here is to give each person a name tag that pops into frame and tracks with them out of frame. We've already built the transitions in, and that's basically just a few eased keyframes for scale, which goes from 0 to 84% and settles at 72%, making it bounce to life during the transition. Right now, all these layers are just thrown in, and the first thing we'll want to do is decide when they should pop into the video. So we'll scrub around our footage and move each layer until the name shows up when we want it to. Now we can start tracking, and we'll start with Daenerys here. The idea here is to choose your source. That's the thing you're going to use to create your track, and then choose what to apply that track to. In this case, our source will be our footage, and our target will be our name tag. But we're going to take one extra step. Instead of applying our track directly to Daenerys here, we can do that, but there's a reason we're doing this other thing. First, we create a null object. Hit return and name it Daenerys null. Null objects are just invisible layers that can hold any information you want, and you'll see why they're so powerful in a minute. For now, back to tracking. Let's double-click our footage layer, and notice up here at the top of our viewer we have a new tab. We're no longer looking at our composition, we're looking at this layer only. Here's the comp, and here's the layer. Now, we'll go to the tracker tools over here to the right and click Track Motion. For now, we'll keep it simple and just track position and not rotation or scale. So far, we've told After Effects what element we want to track, but not where we want to apply that track. So we go to Edit Target and choose the null object we just created. Now, let's make sure our playhead is where we want to start tracking. In this case, it's the first frame of our composition. Now we'll click on our viewer and hit Command+ to zoom in, and you can see track point 1 here. We want to place this by clicking inside the smaller box and moving it around. We can also resize these boxes. This inner box tells After Effects what object to lock on, and the outer box tells it where else to scan. The rule of thumb is the smaller the box you can get away with, the better, because a huge search box will take forever. Also, this outer box really comes in handy if your object is going to move very quickly, because it may end up way out of that box the next frame, like we see in this animation from episode 1. So we know we want to track this person, but the real art of it is where to place that track so that After Effects will know what it's looking at. This is pretty much trial and error, but the idea is you want contrasts. Lines that contrast one another, like right here, are good. Say the edge of one of these picture frames, or the pattern on his shirt is really good. If you have something that doesn't have a lot of contrast in it, it's going to lose that track pretty easily. Okay, so we have her tracker placed on the eye, and we're on the first frame of our composition. Now we click over here to analyze forward. And that went really well up until she disappeared out of frame. However, we want her name tag to disappear out of frame with her. So let's go back to the last frame that had a good track. At this point, we need to tell After Effects to track something else that's in frame. We do that by holding down Option on Mac. You'll see your cursor turn white. Now we drag the outer box to select something else. Let's try the edge of his shirt. This white box here looks pretty good. This is the box that searches for data, but what we just did is keep our little track point, which is this little X, in the same spot. So even though we're getting data from down here, it will keep the track we're already on. It won't move it all the way over to his shirt. Now we analyze until it reaches the end of the frame. Now we have a track. Now click Apply and choose X and Y. And it brings us back to our composition with our tracking data applied to our Daenerys null object. You can see that represented by this little red box here. Let's twirl that down, and you'll see After Effects has created keyframes for the position of that layer based on the tracking data. But our name tag still isn't moving. That's because all our tracking data is stored in this null object. Now we need to parent our Daenerys name layer to that null, and we do that here. Parenting a layer to another layer means whatever this parent layer does, this one will do as well. If we had applied our track to our name layer, our position values would all be filled up with keyframes like it is here with our null layer. But because we track to the null, we can move our name layer around wherever we want without changing the tracking data. And I'll show you by going to where the name reaches the end of the screen, and let's just move it out a little bit more. Come back, want that name to be a little lower. There we go. 1 down, 5 to go. I'll create all my null objects, first by creating one, copy and pasting it, and changing the names. Then I'll start tracking exactly like we did with the first one. Double-clicking the layer, clicking track motion, and you'll see this time we've created a second tracker. I'll go just before the name pops into view, find a good track point, and start tracking. And at the end, we'll do the same thing we did before. Option click and drag the outside of the search box to point at something different. Choose Tyrion's null object as the target, click apply to X and Y, parent that to the correct null, and move that layer around to get it where you want it. The art of this whole process is in what you decide to track. Some objects After Effects will hate, and your track will be all over the place. If this happens, you can just stop tracking and Command Z to undo, and start again on a better object. Sometimes it can take a few tries. Other times you may have to babysit the track. If After Effects isn't smart enough to do auto track, you can move forward or backward frame by clicking here, and hand place the track point on each frame. It's tedious, but it gets the job done, and sometimes there's no way around it. And you'll notice in this example, sometimes the things you're tracking move. As this guy slouches, it's going to change our track, but his shoulder stays pretty consistent. Okay, so we have 6 trackers in our footage layer, and all of our null layers have the keyframes for these trackers. And each of our name layers is parented to a null, and that's where they're getting their information. But wait, what if we decide we want to track Tyrion a little further back in the timeline? Totally doable. You're never locked in once you've done a tracker. All we have to do is double click on our layer again. So we're looking at this layer, and go down and click on Tracker 2, or select it up here. Let's go back to where this tracker comes in. I'll head to the first frame of the track. Now we'll track backward to the beginning of the comp, and that tracker fills in those missing frames. Once we apply it to the Tyrion null, it overwrites the previous tracking data, and now we have a new track. This is another reason why we tracked to the null layer. If we want the name tag to pop in earlier, all we have to do is move this layer around and it won't affect the tracking data. So if I want to now, I can have Tyrion pop in at the beginning too. And that covers tracking in a nutshell. The next 2 examples are very quick because they use the same general techniques we used in this cafe example. Open the composition called Stabilization. Here we're going to use tracking data to take out the handheld motion of this footage. Double-click the layer, and this time we'll choose Stabilize Motion. There are 2 ways to do this. We can choose Stabilize Motion, or we can choose Track Motion, and under Track Type, choose Stabilize. They get you to the same place. And because this footage rolls a little bit, we're going to choose Rotation as well. Now we have 2 track points, and that second one gives you your rotation data. We want to choose 2 points that are pretty far from each other. The farther, the better the rotation data. We can't use a null object on this one, so our source is also the target. Now, when we track forward and apply, our object is stationary, and the edges of the frame dance around. We'll get rid of those by changing the position to center it and scale. And just like that, you have stable footage. And the last example is here in the comp called Screen, where we'll use the tracker to replace a screen in a monitor. Here we have our screen, and this hidden layer is some footage we want to put into it. We start the same way we did before, by double-clicking our monitor layer, and in the tracker we track motion and choose Perspective Corner Pin. We can't use a null object on this either, so our target is our puppy footage. Now we have 4 track points, and we drag each to a corner of the screen. If you have some space to play with, make sure the little track point X is just outside the screen so your footage will cover the edges. Now track forward. Super easy, and this method works regardless of whether the footage is handheld or if the monitor rotates. in which case After Effects will automatically adjust the perspective of your replacement footage. There it is, a lot of tracking smashed into 10 minutes. Use it, get comfortable with it. Pretty soon you'll find yourself acting like you're at a roulette table in Vegas, throwing your tracker down, crossing your fingers, and come on, here we go, big money, big get, oh! It's fun. But also, it's so worth it for everything tracking lets you do for your projects. Make sure to head over to our blog for more episodes of How To Video, and stay tuned for episode 3 while we'll learn tricks that are even more advanced. Thanks for watching.